There are moments in life that refuse to be explained by ordinary reasoning, and this is one of them. Before you allow your mind to dismiss what brought you here, recognize that your presence in this moment carries a deeper significance than simple chance. Long before you clicked on this message, something within you had already begun moving in this direction, quietly guiding your attention toward a truth that was waiting for the right time to reveal itself. That subtle feeling you have been carrying, the one that keeps returning no matter how many logical explanations you create, is not an accident. It is the unmistakable signal that an important inner shift has already begun. Take a slow breath and become fully present, because what you are about to experience reaches far beyond gathering information. It is the beginning of an awakening that asks you to recognize what your spirit has sensed long before your conscious mind could understand it. Tonight represents a decisive moment, whether you expected it or not. A doorway is opening, an unseen current is changing direction, and your life is responding before you can fully explain why. If something inside you has already started stirring while listening to these words, if you feel an unexpected sense of recognition or a quiet certainty that cannot be ignored, remain here until the very end. This message was never intended for everyone. It naturally finds those who have endured seasons of uncertainty, those who have survived repeated endings only to rebuild themselves stronger each time, and those who continued moving forward even when no one recognized the battles they were fighting in silence. If those experiences describe your journey, then part of you already understands why these words feel so familiar. Stay grounded in this moment. Allow yourself to fully receive what is unfolding. Take a moment to support this video by liking it and subscribing, because what begins here is not simply another conversation. It is the beginning of a personal journey, and once your awareness crosses this threshold, returning to the version of yourself that existed before becomes impossible. During recent days, or perhaps even longer, you may have noticed an unfamiliar feeling growing beneath the surface of your daily life. It is difficult to describe because it does not resemble fear, yet it is not comfort either. Everything around you appears almost unchanged, while your inner world seems to be quietly rearranging itself in ways that words cannot easily capture. You may have found yourself questioning why your emotions rise unexpectedly, why certain nights have become restless, or why your body seems unusually sensitive even when nothing obvious has happened. Perhaps you have awakened with a feeling that something significant is taking place without any visible event to explain it. There may even be moments when an unexplained sadness or anticipation washes over you, disappearing just as quickly as it arrived, leaving you wondering where it came from. These experiences are not evidence that you are losing your balance. They are signs that you are entering a deeper alignment with your own path. Your soul often recognizes change long before your thoughts are capable of giving it a name. You now stand at the edge of an important energetic threshold, and every part of your inner being is responding to it before your logical mind can organize the experience into something familiar. The energy building before the full moon rarely arrives in silence. Instead, it amplifies everything that has remained hidden beneath the surface. Emotions that have been carefully buried begin asking to be acknowledged. Questions you have postponed suddenly demand honest answers. Places where you have avoided looking become impossible to ignore. Yet the greatest revelation is not about the people around you or the circumstances surrounding your life. The greatest revelation is about your own reflection. You are beginning to see yourself with greater honesty than ever before, and while that process may feel uncomfortable, it is also deeply liberating, because truth always creates the possibility for genuine transformation. At this very moment, an invisible current surrounds your life. It cannot be measured by ordinary senses, yet its presence is undeniable to anyone willing to listen with deeper awareness. Many people will move through these days without recognizing anything unusual. They will bury themselves in constant distractions, endless routines, familiar habits, and the noise of everyday life, convincing themselves that nothing meaningful is changing. But your experience has already separated you from that pattern. That quiet pressure you feel behind your thoughts, the gentle force encouraging you to keep moving even when part of you wants to remain where everything feels familiar, is not your imagination. It is an invitation that does not rely on spoken language, because its message reaches far beyond words. You have encountered this feeling before. Each time you attempted to ignore it, it returned with greater strength, becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss. That persistence exists because this calling is not arriving from somewhere outside of you. It is emerging from the deepest part of your own being, asking to be acknowledged instead of silenced. If you pause and honestly reflect on the recent chapters of your life, a pattern begins revealing itself with remarkable clarity. Relationships that once felt permanent have gradually faded without dramatic endings. Conversations that once carried warmth have become strangely distant. Bonds you believed would always remain unchanged now seem unable to support the person you're becoming. Roles that once gave your life direction no longer inspire the same sense of purpose, leaving you wondering whether you somehow failed or whether everything simply unraveled without explanation. Those questions are understandable, but they do not tell the whole story. What has been happening reaches much deeper than disappointment or coincidence. Life has not been removing these experiences to punish you, nor have they disappeared because you lacked value. The truth is that you have grown beyond them. This is one of the least understood stages of personal transformation, because it often feels like loss before it reveals itself as preparation. As you evolve, the universe gradually clears away everything that can no longer exist in harmony with the person you are becoming. Releasing familiar people, familiar identities, and familiar attachments naturally feels painful because every ending asks something of your heart. Yet beneath that temporary discomfort, something far more meaningful is taking place. Room is being created for what belongs in your next chapter. Every release opens space that could not exist otherwise. Every ending quietly prepares the foundation for a beginning that requires a version of you no longer confined by what has already fulfilled its purpose. If your heart has been telling you that something extraordinary is building beneath the surface of your life, do not dismiss that feeling as imagination. What you are moving through now is far more significant than an ordinary chapter coming to an end. You are standing inside a period of mounting spiritual intensity, a space where unseen forces gather momentum before everything reaches a moment of undeniable release. The energy leading into the full moon never arrives to keep life comfortable. Its purpose is to magnify whatever has been quietly living inside you. Every unspoken fear, every forgotten dream, every emotion you carefully buried, every truth you postponed facing, begins rising into your awareness with increasing strength. This process is not designed to overwhelm your spirit. It exists so that nothing essential can remain hidden any longer. You may notice yourself becoming emotional without a clear reason. You may wake feeling unusually drained even after resting. There may be moments when you look at your own reflection and wonder which version of yourself is real, because you no longer fully recognize the person you have been. If this has been your experience, understand that you are not falling apart. You are living through the sacred space between who you have been and who you are becoming. One identity is quietly releasing its grip, while another waits just beyond the limits of your present awareness, preparing to step forward. This is not disorder. It is the unmistakable movement of genuine transformation. There comes a point in every meaningful journey when an old version of the self reaches the completion of its purpose. That ending does not happen because it was weak or because it somehow failed. It happens because its work has been fulfilled. The person you once needed to become carried you through seasons that demanded endurance instead of freedom. That version survived disappointment, accepted situations that reflected less than your true worth, questioned inner wisdom when intuition deserved to be trusted, and remained silent during moments when your deepest truth longed to be expressed. Every one of those experiences had value because they shaped the foundation that brought you to this exact point. Nothing was wasted. Yet the self that carried those burdens cannot accompany you into what comes next. The next stage asks for greater honesty, deeper courage, stronger self-trust, and a life that reflects your authentic nature instead of old patterns built around fear. Beneath every hesitation and every lingering doubt, you already recognize that the time has arrived to loosen your grip on what no longer belongs in your future. Even if your external circumstances appear almost unchanged, an irreversible process has already begun within you. Your thinking is becoming more mature. Your choices are becoming less reactive and more intentional. Your perception is expanding beyond familiar limits, allowing you to notice truths that once escaped your attention. Quietly, without seeking approval from anyone around you, your inner world is being reconstructed. That transformation does not require visible proof to be genuine. In time, those around you may begin sensing that something about your presence has changed, even if they cannot explain exactly what they notice. The difference will not come from appearances alone. It will come from the energy you carry, the confidence you embody, and the calm certainty that naturally replaces old uncertainty. This hidden stage is one of the most important parts of your journey, because it is here that the universe prepares you before revealing what has been waiting beyond the horizon. The process unfolds without dramatic announcements, yet its influence reaches every corner of your life. It is quiet, but it is powerful. It is subtle, yet absolutely necessary for everything that is preparing to unfold. You have probably noticed another feeling that refuses to disappear regardless of how busy you become. It follows you into quiet moments and gently returns whenever distractions fade. At first it may resemble fear because of its intensity, or anxiety because of the urgency it creates, yet neither description fully captures its nature. What you are experiencing reaches deeper than ordinary emotion. It feels like an invisible current drawing you towards something that is unfamiliar and strangely recognizable at the same time. It is the certainty of knowing without evidence. It is the unmistakable impression that an important moment is approaching, not sometime far away, but much sooner than you expected. Rather than resisting this sensation or questioning your own awareness, allow yourself to acknowledge it. What you are feeling is anticipation born from the wisdom of your soul. Your inner being often recognizes approaching change long before the logical mind gathers enough information to explain it. At this very moment, you stand before an opening that has been forming for far longer than you realize. Your physical eyes may not yet recognize what is changing, but unseen movement has already begun. The doorway you have sensed through intuition is no longer a distant possibility waiting somewhere in the future. It has already started revealing itself, slowly and almost silently, like a curtain lifting to expose a reality that was always present, but previously hidden from view. This is the stage where energy rearranges itself before visible events begin reflecting that change. The invisible always prepares the visible. As this transition unfolds, you may become increasingly aware of subtle impressions, stronger intuition, deeper emotional sensitivity, or a heightened connection with everything surrounding you. Ordinary experiences may suddenly feel more meaningful, and small moments may seem to carry messages you never noticed before. None of this exists because your imagination has become more active. It happens because your alignment is becoming more refined. The opening you have been searching for does not exist somewhere outside your life, waiting to be discovered. It has always existed within you. As that inner doorway continues opening, it silently presents a question that only you can answer. Are you willing to move forward without carrying everything that once defined you? Every meaningful transformation, every energetic shift, and every spiritual threshold asks for proof of readiness before the next chapter begins. These moments are never designed as punishment. They exist to reveal whether your actions truly match the growth you claim to desire. Right now, that process has already begun. The challenges may not appear dramatic from the outside, yet they reach deeply into your personal experience. Familiar habits may quietly return, inviting you to repeat reactions you believed you had already left behind. Do not be surprised if old uncertainties suddenly find their way back into your thoughts. You may notice familiar fears speaking with voices you believed had long since disappeared, and circumstances that closely resemble chapters you thought were finished may unexpectedly return, inviting your attention one last time. It is easy to mistake these moments for setbacks, but that is not what they are. They are not evidence that your growth has failed. They are evidence that your transformation is reaching completion. Life has an extraordinary way of placing former patterns directly in front of you once more, not to pull you backward, but to reveal how much you have truly changed. This final encounter gives you the opportunity to respond from the person you are becoming, rather than the person you used to be. The question before you is remarkably simple, yet it carries tremendous power. Will you return to what feels comfortable simply because it is familiar, or will you honor the deeper awareness that has quietly been growing inside you through every lesson, every challenge, and every season of uncertainty? The breakthrough you have been waiting for is not hidden somewhere in a distant future. It is already present, waiting inside the decisions you choose to make today. Every response, every act of courage, and every moment of honesty becomes part of the doorway that is opening before you. If this moment feels unusually significant, trust that feeling. There is a quiet gravity surrounding your life that cannot easily be explained with ordinary logic. Deep within yourself, you may sense that events are unfolding according to a rhythm far greater than personal plans or carefully designed expectations. Perhaps there were times when you questioned why certain opportunities remained out of reach, why important doors stayed closed despite your efforts, or why the answers you longed for seemed absent during the moments you needed them most. Looking back, those experiences may have appeared to be frustrating delays, but your perspective is beginning to change. As the present energy continues building, another truth slowly becomes visible. Nothing meaningful arrived late. Everything arrived according to a timing that required your full readiness. Divine timing has never existed to satisfy human impatience. Its purpose is to prepare the soul before placing it inside the life it is truly meant to live. Every lesson you endured, every unexpected detour, every unanswered question, and every apparent interruption has quietly shaped the person capable of standing where you are now. The weight you feel in this season is not the burden of unrealistic expectations. It is the unmistakable awareness that something deeply meaningful is preparing to unfold, and your spirit recognizes its importance before your mind fully understands it. As this energetic gateway continues revealing itself, you may notice an inner struggle becoming stronger. It can feel as though two different versions of yourself are reaching for control at the same time. One side longs for the security of familiar routines, predictable outcomes, and the comfort of what has always been known. The other side continues drawing you toward unfamiliar territory, toward possibilities that awaken excitement and uncertainty in equal measure. That internal tension may seem uncomfortable, but it does not mean you have lost your direction. It means your life is expanding beyond the limits of your previous identity. Every meaningful stage of growth carries resistance, because the familiar naturally resists being replaced by something greater. Transformation has never been a smooth transition from one chapter to another. It is created through movement, friction, and the willingness to remain present while old foundations slowly give way. The space between who you once were and who you are becoming may feel uncertain. Yet it is within that very space that your deepest strength begins revealing itself. You may also notice that beliefs you once defended with complete confidence no longer feel as solid as they once did. Situations that previously appeared obvious may suddenly seem far more complex. What once felt permanent may now seem temporary. None of this signals instability. It signals that deeper truth is beginning to dissolve the illusions that once shaped your perspective. The energy leading into the full moon possesses a remarkable ability to uncover what has remained hidden, not only within the external world, but within your own understanding of yourself. Relationships may begin revealing qualities you previously overlooked. Circumstances may appear in an entirely different light. Even your own identity may become clearer as layers of self-deception gradually disappear. This greater honesty can feel uncomfortable because illusions often provide temporary comfort, while truth asks for genuine change. As those illusions begin falling away, there may be moments of uncertainty, while your perception adjusts to a new level of awareness. Yet what remains after illusion dissolves carries a stability that cannot easily be shaken, because it is built upon authenticity rather than appearance. Every profound transformation eventually arrives at a moment when a choice must be made. Not a decision driven by pressure, fear, or outside expectation, but one guided by inner alignment. That moment is drawing closer for you now. From the outside, it may appear completely ordinary. There may be no dramatic event, no unmistakable announcement, and no visible signal that captures the attention of everyone around you. Instead, the confirmation will arise quietly within your own heart. It will appear as a calm certainty, a clear realization that continuing to live as you have is no longer possible. This decision is not about separating good from bad or success from failure. It is about recognizing what continues supporting your highest path and what has quietly completed its purpose. The instant you choose alignment over familiarity, life itself begins responding. Energy shifts. Opportunities begin moving. Circumstances gradually reorganize around the truth you have embraced. As this turning point approaches, another desire may begin growing stronger inside you. You may feel unexpectedly ready to release thoughts that have weighed upon your mind, habits that no longer reflect the person you are becoming, relationships that have reached their natural conclusion, or identities that once protected you but now prevent further growth. At first, this process may resemble loss, because letting go often requires saying goodbye to parts of yourself that once felt essential. Yet this is not loss in its truest form. It is liberation. The energy surrounding you now supports the removal of everything that has become too heavy to carry into your next chapter. It gently encourages you to release outdated burdens, worn-out beliefs, and attachments that no longer resonate with your evolving spirit. Allowing these things to fall away is rarely effortless, especially when they have become intertwined with your identity over many years. Even so, every release creates new space, and that empty space is never meaningless. It becomes the place where renewed energy can enter, where unexpected opportunities can take root, and where a stronger, more authentic version of yourself can finally emerge. You have traveled farther than you realize, and now you stand closer than ever before to the transformation your soul has been sensing all along. Nothing that has brought you to this moment has been meaningless. Every emotion that caught you off guard, every season that tested your patience, every experience that seemed impossible to explain has quietly guided you toward where you stand today. What once felt like a distant possibility is no longer something existing somewhere beyond your reach. The doorway you have sensed for so long is no longer symbolic or far away. It has become part of your present reality. You are standing within the delicate space where one chapter has not completely ended, while another has not yet fully revealed itself. Although this in-between season may feel uncertain, it is one of the most powerful stages of any transformation. It is a sacred crossing that asks for trust instead of certainty, awareness instead of distraction, and courage instead of hesitation. Even if you cannot yet see every step ahead, you are not walking through this moment without guidance. There is a greater intelligence supporting your journey, quietly arranging what your eyes have not yet recognized. The only choice left before you is whether you will answer the invitation when the opportunity finally arrives. Perhaps you have already begun sensing the shift in ways that seem impossible to describe. A sudden wave of intensity may rise through you without warning, settling deeply within your chest as though your entire being has become aware of something your mind has not yet understood. What once felt like a subtle current now becomes unmistakable. The quiet momentum that has been building beneath the surface begins gathering undeniable strength until it can no longer be ignored. At first, this increase in energy may feel overwhelming because its presence is unlike anything familiar. Yet it has not appeared to damage you or push you into fear. It has arrived to awaken something that has remained dormant for far too long. The universe does not introduce this level of intensity without profound purpose. What you are experiencing now is the activation of everything your life has been preparing you to receive. This is not a passing emotion that will disappear tomorrow, nor is it a random event without meaning. It marks the beginning of a profound ignition, the point where preparation gives way to emergence, and where everything that has quietly developed within you begins moving into conscious awareness. Hidden beneath years of experience are truths you have carried without fully recognizing them. They were never buried because they were meant to remain hidden forever. They remained beneath the surface because another season was required before you could meet them with enough wisdom and strength. As this energetic doorway continues opening, those deeper truths naturally begin rising into your awareness. At first they may appear gently, almost unnoticed, but soon they become impossible to overlook. They ask to be acknowledged rather than avoided. They ask to become part of the person you are now becoming. You may suddenly recognize repeating patterns that once escaped your attention. Feelings you carefully pushed aside may return with surprising clarity. Certain realizations may bring both relief and discomfort, because truth often carries both freedom and responsibility at the same time. Resist the temptation to push these discoveries away. Truth never emerges to create unnecessary suffering. It rises because it has the power to restore you to greater alignment with who you truly are. Even if those realizations temporarily shake the foundations of your life or require you to reconsider long-held beliefs, they are guiding you toward a more authentic path than the one you previously followed. As these inner revelations continue unfolding, your perception naturally begins changing in ways that cannot be reversed. You start recognizing what exists beneath appearances rather than accepting everything at face value. The stories people tell, the images they project, and the assumptions you once accepted without question begin revealing deeper layers. Circumstances that previously seemed confusing suddenly become remarkably clear, while situations that once felt perfectly logical may no longer resonate with your inner knowing. None of these changes occur by accident. They reflect the expansion of your consciousness. Your awareness is becoming more refined, allowing you to distinguish genuine truth from illusion with increasing confidence. This heightened perception becomes one of the greatest gifts of your transformation. Because once authentic clarity enters your life, it becomes impossible to return to the limitations of unconscious living. As this awareness deepens, another change quietly begins taking place within you. Without forcing it, you naturally create distance from what no longer supports your growth. This separation is not rooted in bitterness, rejection, or emotional coldness. It grows from understanding. You begin recognizing that not every experience belongs in your future, and that not every relationship is meant to accompany you into the next stage of your journey. At first, this new sense of detachment may feel unfamiliar, especially if your heart has remained deeply connected to the very things you now feel called to release. Yet this is not evidence that something valuable is being taken from you. It is evidence that your spirit has matured enough to choose alignment over attachment. Every time you release what no longer reflects your highest path, you create room for something that does. As you continue approaching this threshold, another voice may quietly begin making itself known. Unlike the awakening that calls you forward, this voice encourages caution, familiarity, and retreat into what feels predictable. This is fear, though it rarely arrives in dramatic ways. It often disguises itself as hesitation, uncertainty, or the quiet question asking whether you are truly prepared for what lies ahead. Fear is not your opponent. It simply reflects the significance of the step you are about to take. Whenever life asks you to move beyond familiar boundaries, fear naturally appears because it measures the distance between your current identity and the person you are becoming. Yet despite its presence, fear possesses no authority over your future unless you choose to surrender your power to it. Beneath every anxious thought, every lingering doubt, and every unanswered question, something far older and far wiser is beginning to awaken. This emerging presence is not new. It has existed within you since the beginning, patiently waiting until the proper moment to reveal itself. What is awakening now is the remembrance of your deepest identity beyond temporary roles, beyond inherited limitations, and beyond every definition you accepted simply because it was handed to you. At first, this remembering arrives as a quiet certainty that feels strangely familiar, as though you are reconnecting with something you somehow always knew. As it grows stronger, it transforms the way you view yourself. You no longer see someone desperately searching for direction outside yourself. Instead, you recognize that the guidance you sought has quietly existed within you all along. Before this transformation can fully unfold, however, one final stage must take place. Every meaningful beginning requires a clearing before it can be fully received. Anything that no longer belongs must be released so it cannot interfere with what is preparing to emerge. Because of this, you may notice another rise in emotional intensity. Feelings that seemed resolved may briefly return for closure. Situations that have remained unfinished may suddenly reach their conclusion in unexpected ways. From the outside, these events may appear disruptive, yet beneath the surface, they are serving a much greater purpose. This is not unnecessary chaos. It is preparation. The universe is carefully removing the final remnants of everything that cannot accompany you into your next chapter. Although it may feel as though many areas of your life are shifting simultaneously, each movement serves the same purpose, clearing the path before you take your next step. What you are experiencing now is the final purification before crossing fully into the life that has been patiently waiting for your arrival.